Welcome back, everybody. We've got another brush pile out here. Today I'm going to walk you through what I've learned over the last couple weeks about burning brush piles. So any of you that saw that last video, that one almost didn't make it to the internet. I almost didn't publish it. The gist of it is I was trying to burn a brush pile a couple hundred yards that way. It was green. It only had been down a couple months. This one behind me, it's been in here a couple years, so I don't think we'll struggle too much. That one up there, I gave about 50% effort. I filmed that Super Bowl Sunday, and I wanted to get back to the house and start the grill. So that's why you got 50% effort up in the air. But I was flooded with comments, great tips and tricks on all different ways to tackle brush piles, and I'm going to try to implement them here today, even though we may not need them. So besides being seasoned for a couple years, this is all the white pine that you see around me. So it should be easier to burn to start with, and it's super dry. But just because it had been pounded down by the weather for all this time, I wanted to break it open, get some air in there a little bit, and expose the dry stuff underneath because it had just snowed earlier this week. It's a pretty sad winter so far. This may be, I keep saying that, but it may be one of the last weekends we have snow on the ground here in New Hampshire. When the ground's not covered in snow, you can get in trouble for trying to burn something like this, as safe as it may seem. So no matter where you're starting with your brush pile, I like to start with some good supplemental fuel, I'll call it. So here I grabbed some white pine that I keep up just for campfire wood. It's good and dry. I'm going to split it into smaller pieces kindling. I've got some newspaper and some cardboard, just like you start a normal campfire. We'll want to take all the advantage we can get in case it doesn't go the first try. So I'll split some of that now with the kindling cracker. So I like this thing a lot. A lot of people think they're kind of novelty, but this thing has some huge utility. Safer. Had my son using it last weekend without any trouble. And yeah, I guess safety is a big thing, and it being cool and well made. Kindlingcracker.com if you're interested. So speaking a little bit about the pile, you'll obviously want to be out in the open, away from woods. Those hemlocks you see in the background are plenty far enough for my scenario. Very hard to burn the woods down where I am, especially this time of year. But what came through in those comments is that that pile I tried to burn last weekend, it was larger, and I built it up into like a teepee fashion, and that made it so there was quite a bit of airspace in the middle. And one good comment that came through was that if the pile was more compacted, probably would have had a much better chance of getting caught. And the pile was just too big overall. And another good comment that came through was that to build, if you do have that much brush, it's better to build a small pile in a line, snake-like pile in your field or whatnot. It's much safer and easier to start a fire at one end of the pile, and it'll work itself through and burn safer and easier that way. So that's something I'm going to try next time if I have a substantial amount of brush that I know I'm going to burn. One of the best ideas that came through is one man said he's got a what do you call it, a weed torch, those big, maybe some people call them roofing torches, I think, that hook up to like your 15 or 20 pound propane tank. I use this. I got a couple floating around the garage, and they're super handy, super cheap, and works great for this type of stuff. But it's not gonna catch a big pile on fire at a large scale, and they freeze up when it's real cold out. Apparently my Kodiak cake box isn't that flammable after all. And the consensus from just about everybody in the comments is that you need a leaf blower. No matter how green the pile it was sounding like people were convinced that if I had my leaf blower out there, I could have gotten it started. So I brought the leaf blower with me today. I'm going to see if it helps. It'll help. I'll give it a couple minutes. It's only been less than a minute since I started that. So even with that leaf blower, that fire wasn't super eager to get started, so you might have saw me dump some used motor oil on there. I keep this around for starting fires, among a couple other things, and it works great. Not terrible for the environment. I mentioned in the last video that diesel never really did it for us. Our experience, it can put out a match. Somebody said in the comments, I believe, that the US Forest Service will mix a little bit of gasoline with diesel. Certainly don't quote me on that, and don't try it without doing a bunch of research. But that makes a lot of sense to me. You obviously want to be careful with this, but I think more often than not you're going to struggle to get the fire going than something too dangerous, unless you try to use something silly like gasoline. So some of you might be asking at this point why I have so many brush piles just sitting around. I'm kind of a collector of them. Here I'm carving out a spot in the woods. This is a micro food plot now. I have aspirations. This is kind of the geographic center of my property. It's the furthest from anything. And the wildlife love it. I didn't show you the tracks, but there's tracks all through here. I'm standing on a deer trail now. There's way too many coyote tracks out here for my liking. And bobcat, but we can't trap bobcats here in New Hampshire or hunt them. So they're going to proliferate. But yeah, this is going to get at least going to become a half an acre in the not too distant future, but I at least wanted to get this brush out of here so I can throw some clover down, some more clover down. You can't see obviously because we're covered in snow, but there's clover here, and you can see a tree stand up behind me. Deer love stopping here. So I've never tried to manipulate the brush pile with the tractor while there's a fire burning, and I don't know if it's going to come to that today. This is just getting started, but I feel like once there's a good bed of coals going and it's much more difficult to smother it, I can expedite the process quite a bit by toppling the brush onto those coals. So stay tuned. I think that's what we're going to try next. So if you can't tell, there's only about 6 inches of snow on the ground at the most, and the tractor was struggling there. I've got the chains on the rear, and without those it really wouldn't be serviceable out here. I cut this out before I had the stump grinder, so there's still some sizable stumps in here, and I was getting hung up on those. But I'd say tire chains are kind of a must if you want to get back in the woods like I am, at least on my property. I think I did more good than harm there, knocking that over. We'll see how that catches. friends, quickly realizing we're going to run out of daylight, and we're definitely going to run out of camera batteries before this thing gets burnt flush to the ground. But that's the gist of it. That's what I've learned over the last couple weeks as comments came pouring in, and my years of experience. Brush piles are just kind of a way of life, something you want to deal with if you manage timber in any scale. But it can be a lot of fun, big family affair. But you got to set aside 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. I'm home alone today, so family's not out here with me. Otherwise, they would be. Well, I'm a long ways from home, but I'm here alone. And yeah, that's what we got going on. I'm done with brush piles for a while, so you won't have to bear with any more of that. So stay tuned for more interesting future videos, hopefully. I really appreciate you all following along. Appreciate everyone that chimed in with comments. If you got more tips and tricks, or if you enjoyed this one, just let me know down in the comments. Appreciate it, and we'll see you at the next one. Take care.